Okay, I want to start off by giving all praises to Yahweh, Ba'Shem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Shem, Rakat Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who teacheth the Bible in 100% truth, and shalom to the hopeful elect of the 12 tribes of Israel, starting with the Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans in the land of the Americas, as well as the speckled bird, the Israelite foreigners living amongst the other nations. Shalom to you. And yet also shalom to the 144,000. I don't think I mentioned them. But today I'm looking at prophecy. Yet again, we're in that time. Prophecy is moving very fast. And I've just, you can see it here. I've got this article. This is the Telegraph. So, I did look for other sources of information. I haven't found any yet. You might come across them slowly. But today's Friday, the 2nd of August, 24. And this came out this afternoon at 4 o'clock. But it's a trustworthy source, the telegraph.co.uk. And it says here the US sends fighter jets to the Middle East over Iran-Israel warfares. And, what's happening at the minute, that war's been going on for a while. And, as we tell you, just pull it up here. You've got Jeremiah 49:20, Jeremiah 50:45. What happened in October in the Middle East, that war that started off in October, that is going to lead to World War III. And at the time I mentioned, it's going to be a slow build-up. You don't just have an event and then 2 weeks later, we're in World War. We're in a world war. Like the wars are bankers' wars. So, they can orchestrate them, they can maneuver things, they can make them happen and instigate them. And, usually it's for some sort of financial reason. And we know in this instance, it's going to all lead us towards the MOTB. And so what's happening in the Middle East, it seems, scriptures say, it seems like it tarry, but, it doesn't. And we're in that time. If you're still thinking that the prophecies are tarrying at the minute, delaying, seem like they're not coming to pass, then you're clearly not with it. You should be in. You could, if you could call it, you could be in kind of like fight or flight mode. I wouldn't say panic, but you should be alerted to all the things that are going on around you, and then realizing this. We're very close to something major happening around the world. You go around you go on YouTube, for example, you look around in different countries, there's so many uproars of the people are unhappy, financial crisis, wars, so on and so forth. So, it seems like an ongoing event, and just, we've been talking about these things for months and months, but they're it's going to lead us to this destruction. And, just to read it before I move on here, Jeremiah 49:20, for example, therefore hear the counsel of Yahweh that ye have taken against Edom and his purposes. And the nation of Edom are the ruling nation today. They are the ones, Revelation 13 speaks of the beast system, which is a system deployed around the world, a geopolitical worldwide system, and it incorporates, the financial system. And that is controlled by America, the whore in Revelation chapter 17. And, all in all, this is a Edomite power structure. That's the Edomite power structure that's ruling over the nations today. And, even though individual nations have their individual power and, if you like, their own corner, which they, govern and rule, ultimately on a worldwide agenda, they have to follow the rules within the beast system, which is manipulated by America. So, when it's speaking against Edom, it's speaking to the Edomite power structure. And, that not only does that represent America, it represents the beast system, it represents the small hats in the Middle East. It says here that he hath purposed against the inhabitants of Teman. And, Teman being the wisest of the Edomites. I believe they go back to the Germans. And it says that he have purposed against the inhabitants of Teman. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitations desolate with them. Jeremiah 50:45. Therefore hear ye the counsel of Yahweh that ye have taken against Babylon. So this is now talking about America and his purposes. It's, same people basically. They've purposed against the land of the Chaldeans. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. So, Babylon the Great are going to be drawn into this war. As it's speaking of, Babylon. And it says here, surely the least of the flock, the least of the Edomite flock is going to draw out draw America. It says here, therefore hear the counsel of Yahweh that he hath taken against Babylon, which is America. So they will be drawn into war, and so will other nations. And it says, surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. So this is what the Most High is going to do. It's going to make America desolate, and the land of Israel will also be destroyed as well, but that will be rebuilt back up. So, the least of the flock represents the small hats in the Middle East. And, they, when you go back to the bowflower declaration, which came through, the Rothschilds in England, they, pretty much set up this state, which today is called, the State of Israel. And, so this is all part of that Edomite power structure. You've got the, UK, the financial part of the beast system. You've got America that represent the military might, and you have Rome, which represents the Catholic, the religious section of the beast system. Then you have the least of the flock, these small hats in the Middle East. I mean, you have Edomites all over the world. They've gone to various different lands. Australia being one, for example. They've gone there, taken over and ruling. So, we're heading to World War III. Just really quickly, this is Joel, chapter 3. I'm going to start at 9, verse 9. It says, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war. Wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. So this is, this is spoken of in the scriptures. If you're new to this, you might not realize, but, this book is full of lamentation and woe. And one of those woes being the Third World War, which is definitely going to happen. And there's a lot of people that see it coming at the minute, and they're hoping, and maybe some of them are praying to their false idols, and they're doing everything they can to hope that this thing doesn't happen. But the wars are bankers' wars, so it all comes down to one set of hands which are going to decide whether there is a world war, and scriptures are telling you, that's definitely going to happen. It says, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, all the different nations. Prepare war, wake up the mighty men. Let all the mighty men of war draw near. Let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. So you've got nations like Iran. They're seen as a weak nation on the worldwide military scene. Yet, now they have weapons, they have these drones. We don't know if they have an ICBM. They could. This is the danger. And, what the West say. And there's other nations as well that, start, even North Korea, for example. North Korea is a small nation. When you think about it, Korea is North and South Korea. So it's not even a full nation. It's half of Korea. Yet they got these ICBMs. And they tell you that they're strong. They've got these ICBMs. If anybody wants it, they're happy to get down. Assemble yourselves and come up, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Yahweh. Let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Yahweh Shaphat. For there I will sit to judge all the heathen round about. And so, you can look that up. This is the valley of Yahweh Shaphat. That is the Levant in the Middle East. And Yahweh Shaphat means Yahweh's decision. It's also in the book of Revelation, it's spoken of as Armageddon, which is the mountain of troops, World War III, which is going to, all worldwide armies will be situated within that area, battling, and then at some point, the World War III will turn nuclear, and that's when we get to the destruction of America. It says, put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, get you down, for the press is full. The fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, Yahweh Shapat. It's for the day of Yahweh is near in the valley of decision. The sun and the moon shall be darkened, and the stars withdraw their shining, because there's going to be ICBMs and smoke, rocket fire, everything, raising up into the air. It says Yahweh also shall roar out of Zion, and utter his voice from Jerusalem, and the heavens and the earth shall shake, but Yahweh will be the hope of his people, and the strength of the children of Israel. So shall ye know that I am Yahweh, your power, dwelling in Zion, my holy mountain. Then shall Jerusalem be holy, and there shall no strangers pass through her any more. So, if you want to find a time where this scripture applies, there's no better time than the time that we're living in now. You've got this problem that's been going on in the Middle East. We're almost coming up to a year. It's August, so August, September, October. So it's been 9 months, and don't be surprised. You remember that I said that World War III is going to come within by 2026, and I said that because I felt the Spirit directed me to say that. That was January 23, and then you then had 10 months. And 10 months went to October 23, which is last year. And then, see, the small hats instigated Jeremiah 49:20, the least of the flock. But I said at the time it will take a while. And really, we have no idea how, we know the major prophecies, but we don't know, no man know the day or the hour. But yet, when you consider it's gone on for 9 months, so you give it another month, we'll be 10 months on from that point. From October the 7th. So then, is Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai going to make something else happen? We don't know, because obviously 10 represents completion. So you have from I spoke it, you have a completion period, 10 months that the Most High activated it. We didn't know that's going to happen, and so then maybe another 10 months from there, something else is going to get activated. We don't know, but at the minute when you look at it, the situation is getting tense, more and more tense all the time. Just like the Civil War situation, in America, you've got the situation with these 2 presidential candidates, the uproars of the people, so on and so forth. People are getting more worked up as we're getting towards the election, and people are complaining. Not just in America now. I'm seeing a lot of it in the UK, in Ireland, for example, in France. You're seeing videos all over the world, and what the locals are doing. They're walking around and they're showing you, that look at how this place looks, blah blah blah. Got these immigrants, and I think in Europe, a lot of those nations are complaining of Africans coming in. For example, France, I know, Germany, and Belgium. All these type, they don't show you on the mainstream media, but if you go around and look, once you search on YouTube, or you start hitting certain videos, you start to pick up the algorithm. And so now I'm getting presented with them all over the world. People in uproars complaining about borderless society. This is what they're creating. They're not realizing it. One world order, which is one world, which is a borderless world. But everybody's complaining, our borders have gone. Our borders have gone. People are just all coming in. It's gone too far now. But they don't realise this is the setup for that one world. You won't need a border after that, because you'll be on the MOTB in your hand. You'll be tracked. It doesn't matter where you go. Forget about crossing borders illegally. You won't be able to get out of your house without them knowing about it. So all this border, going on a plane, border control, this, that, and the other. Like technically, I think if once you go into the airport, you pass a certain point, it's all about jurisdiction. So you could be in one country, but you go into the airport, you go beyond a certain point, you're now in the jurisdiction of the other country that you're flying to. That can happen sometimes. In the world we live in at the minute, all that's going to be dead, because they're going to have the MOTB, and nobody's going to be sneaking over no borders. So they create the problem, they're letting the borders down, people are complaining, and that's one other issue. But back to World War III. And we got this happening today. US sends fighter jets to the Middle East over Iran-Israel war fears. It says Israel is bracing itself for an Iranian attack after 2 major assassinations threatened to trigger a new round of conflict in the Middle East. The United States were preparing to send backup warplanes to help defend Israel from a possible missile or drone attack and deal with any major escalations. It came as Joe Biden reportedly told Benjamin Netanyahu that the US would protect Israel from an Iranian attack, but would not come to its aid if Israel escalated the conflict by retaliating further. Axios said the president held a tough call with Mr. Netanyahu on Thursday in which Mr. Biden showed his frustration and raised his voice. Do you really believe that Joe Biden is in a position to be holding phone calls with people and sticking it on them? Do you think he's really got the mind, the mind to be, at the age that he is now, how we've seen him behave over the last, 4 years? Do you really think he's got the mind to pick up the phone and stick it on someone? This is all part of the play. This is just a charade, what we're reading. But, providing that this headline is true, warplanes are heading over. Don't forget you had warplanes, US and UK warplanes head over last November after, the situation started in October. The Houthis and the Yemen rebels and all that. And it's, we're at that point again where they're sending more. But that's, that bit's got to be true. But, all this stuff about, he held a phone call and he stuck it on him. This is just part of the soap opera. It came as Joe Biden reportedly told Netanyahu that the US would protect Israel from an Iranian attack, but would not come to its aid if Israel escalated the conflict by retaliating further. So they're saying that we'll come and help you, but don't take the mick, basically. And then it goes on to say, on Friday, France also called on its citizens to leave Iran. And that's again today, Friday the 2nd of August. It says on Friday, France also called on its citizens to leave Iran immediately amid fears the Islamic Republic was preparing to attack Israel in response to the assassination of the leader of Hamas. And so that's one of those assassinations that took place in the last couple of days. You probably read about it. So that these assassinations, every time these people get assassinated, things are happening, the tensions are building. And this is what the scriptures tell you. At some point, the least of the flock, the small hats, will draw the other nations. So they have to do something to these other nations round about them to trigger them, to escalate something, for them to call for backup. Backup would be people like Russia. Russia would then bring in, their allies. And then therein lies a major problem for America, because you can say, look, we're sending warplanes out there to help you now, but all they're helping to do is escalate the problem, and eventually it's going to become so big that they're going to have to go. Israeli ministers have been given satellite phones in preparation for an attack that could strike the country's communication system. Israeli media Ynet reported residents in Jerusalem were told to prepare bomb shelters. Authorities stressed, however, that there should not be panic. So don't panic, but here's a satellite phone in preparation for a military strike. So again, what would you do? Someone gives you a phone and says, "Oh, this is a satellite phone. So if the communication system goes down, we can still contact you through the satellites." Oh, but don't panic. Iran promised to punish Jerusalem for killing of Ismail Haniyeh, the Hamas political leader, who was killed by a remote-controlled explosive device in his guest house in Tehran in a suspected Mossad attack. Sources inside Iran and Tehran was preparing a missile or drone attack that could target military installations in Tel Aviv, although some experts caution that it may be calibrated not to escalate the conflict further. However, Iran is also bracing for possible retaliation with air defences deployed. Lebanon's Hezbollah, who's also preparing for a wider escalation. So everybody's preparing. How many people we just listed that are preparing for this wider escalation, moving its military equipment into central Beirut, according to Saudi news outlet Al Hadath. The French foreign minister called on all visiting French nationals still in Iran to leave as soon as possible, owing to the increased risk of military escalation in the region. Meanwhile, Gerald Darmanin, France's interior minister, has also called for increased security for small hat communities in France because of the very high level of tension. So it's just kicking off all over the world. Not only you got these French locals complaining about immigration, just like every other country in the world. Now they're going to have to go out there and protect the small hats because of all these tensions. The whole world is divided at the minute. It's becoming to the point where people want to be confrontational about it. And a lot of it is over immigration, a lot of it is over the money. And then, it doesn't help when people are going home and then they're looking at the TV and they're seeing alphabet people opening up the Olympics. I mean, I haven't really watched any of it. I had my own thing going on this week. Been stuck in a couple of particular books, which I'm trying to go through again with a new eye as to understanding what's going on in them. But you've seen all this stuff going on. Apparently there's all this ridiculous ceremonies opening the Olympics. This type of stuff, people are pissed off as it is, and then they're going out and they're seeing all this immigration, financial crisis, all that kind of stuff. People have had enough. It says this includes the many small hat nationals attending the Olympic Games, he said, after Hamas declared a day of anger on Friday. BFM TV reported. An official within Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the IRGC, told the Telegraph that Iran was considering targeting Tel Aviv in revenge for Haniyeh's assassination in Tehran. Top commanders were awake all night evaluating the options. Now that Mr. Haniyeh's funeral has concluded, they are discussing practical responses, said the IRGC official who attended the funeral on Thursday. Because what happens with Iran, they might receive a strike like they did, and then it takes out somebody. But you won't see a retaliation for 3 days, because then what they do is they give 3 days of mourning until they bury the person. So I think it must have been like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I think, you got assassinated on the Monday, and you're not going to get a response on Tuesday, Wednesday or Thursday until they've done the funeral. And so now they're like, okay. And apparently, they always say that a lot of these attacks in the Middle East, they start off on a Friday, on the weekend. If you go back to October, I believe that was a Friday. So it's Friday. I'm not saying that it's Friday today or something's going to start, but this is why they're starting to get. As it says here, they're pretty much awake all evening evaluating the options. It says the White House said that Joe Biden discussed efforts to support the small hats' defense against threats in a phone call with Netanyahu, including against ballistic missiles and drones, to include new US military deployments. Do you really think Biden's got the brain capacity to sit there and start talking about levels of weaponry and their ability of destruction and all that? You can't even get up a set of stairs. That's if he's still alive. I mean, I saw a video earlier, or a clip of this picture, and they showed him with this president at one point, and him and the president were the same height, and then they showed him with the president at another day, on a later date, and now he's like 6 inches taller than the other president. So so you could tell these people probably got masks on, and so on and so forth. So the US is also preparing to send additional combat aircraft to the region to protect both small hat and US troops from Iran and its proxies, officials told the New York Times. So, yeah, numerous airlines have cancelled their flights to Lebanon and Israel in recent days following the assassination of Haniyeh, as well as Fuad Shakur in Beirut, a top Hezbollah commander. That was the other assassination. India announced on Friday that it will be cancelling all flights to and from Israel until August the 8th. And while Polish airline LOT cancelled 8 flights to Lebanon and Israel, according to PUP news agencies. So John Healey, UK Defence Secretary, met with the Israeli counterpart Yoav Gallant in Israel on Friday, discussing the Small Hat Defence Forces' readiness and capabilities to defend Israel on all fronts. So you see, this is why we tell you they're the least of the flock, because not only have you got the Ballflower Declaration, but even now that they got this war going on, and who's going over there to help these small hats and the least of the flock? You've got US and UK. This is the same group of people. This is the same network of organisation that they have. The control of power. And then obviously, the higher you go up within the pyramid, and you find less and less people with more and more control over the rest of the system. Gallant has said he emphasised the importance of established coalition in the Small Hats defence against the proxies. Israeli airstrikes against Hezbollah continued on Friday, with a drone targeting one of the militant group members who attempted to launch rocket towards Israel. The UK Foreign Office is also advising against all to travel to Lebanon and Iran. If you're currently in Lebanon, we encourage you to leave while commercial options remain available, said the Foreign Office. David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, wrapped up a one-day visit to Lebanon Thursday, calling it a worrying time for people in the country. Mr. Lammy called for an immediate de-escalation in the region, saying he raised his concerns about the ongoing tensions between Lebanon and Israel and highlighted the UK's determination to avoid miscalculation. And this is what it is. The UK and the US, are happy to go in and help, but they don't want to escalate it. They know at any point they can escalate it. Who is in control is the beast system, the bankers. This is why I said in a previous video, we're looking at 4 major things: World War III, the MOTB, the return of Yahushua, the destruction of America. The return of Yahushua, the destruction of America are pretty much the same thing at the same time. And we can't get them until we get the MOTB or World War III. Both of those things are agendas of the elites. So now you see it's set up where you've got the UK and the US and the small hats working together. And what does it say here? That they're, working towards trying to, resolve this, or which, underneath their mission is the same as the small hats mission, to go in and take that land. However, they've got to fight for it. So they've got it in this particular position, and all it says is, one miscalculation and it could lead to a wider war. And so that miscalculation ultimately is in the hands of the elites. You're reading like Biden's on the phone telling off Netanyahu. Do you really believe that? That's the soap opera. But we did run down a few facts where a lot of European countries, India, so on and so forth, they're all stopping their flights to that area. The satellite phones have been handed out, and it's a worrying time for that particular area. It says the conflict between Israel and Lebanon, Mr. Lammy said, should be solved diplomatically based on UN Security Council Resolution 1701, which ended the previous war between Hezbollah and Israel in 2006. Mr. Healey called the loss of innocent life in recent weeks and months unbearable. This is all just for show, man. Mr. Healey is working for the British government. They back these people. So, that's what they send, military aid. But then they come out and go, it's unbearable. But by the way, we're sending another plane, but it's unbearable. It says here, this has to end. All sides must step back from the conflict and set up diplomacy. We will work with important partners like Qatar, and our government leads a renewed push for peace, he said. So that's a nice statement, but what they go and do behind closed doors, we know it's going to be the opposite, because ultimately we believe in the prophecy, we believe in Yahweh Bashim, Yahweh Shai, we believe in the scriptures, so we know it's going to happen, it's going to escalate. It's not going to be a repeat of 2006, where that war between Hezbollah and the small hats de-escalated. This time, they've prepared themselves. You go back to Joel 3, proclaim ye this, is verse 9. Joel 3 and 9, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up, and beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Assemble yourselves and come up, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Yahweh. And we're very close to that. So they're sending out more US planes today. Eventually it's going to tip over and you're going to start seeing other nations. And we're very close. Don't forget, I think it's like 10 days ago, I gave a possible rundown of events that could take us through these particular prophecies. I mentioned World War III, the MOTB, I mentioned Yahweh Shai and the ICBMs. And I mentioned, the World War III and the MOTB, it's all in the hands of the elites. The election result in America and the mood of the people is also in the hands of the elites. So, and I mentioned, even though the whole country seems like they're screaming for Trump, you could end up with Kamala. And what could end up with Kamala is World War III. Basically, if America make it look like they have no choice but to go to war, they could go to war and keep claiming that Biden's still alive, still the president. However, they could then tell you once war starts that Biden's dead and now it's Kamala, you're stuck with her. Or they could do it the other way around. They could tell you next week that Biden's kicked the bucket, and then they could say, oh, by the way, we have to go to war. But if it does follow what I mentioned 10 days ago, you can go back, I think it's about, not the last video, the video before, you can, if you're not sure what I'm saying, if it does follow that course of events, then everything's heading in that direction. The tensions are building and building and building. We're getting closer. And all we need really is just war to kick off before the election. Whether it's Biden or Kamala, it doesn't really matter at that point. They could get rid of Biden at any time while that war is continuing indefinitely and the Democrats are staying in power indefinitely, which would then in turn help to create civil unrest in America. So we'll see what happens. But before I move on with more scriptures, I'm going to leave the link for these two videos in the description box. And one of them is that you can see on the right hand side, GMS Get This Work 2. This Jake just received this in the post. This is a letter basically telling this young Jake that he has to go to war. He has to get ready for active service. And this is in America, Babylon the Great. And then on the left, I'm watching this guy is really annoying. There's a small hat. It's coming from the point of the view as if they are the people. A Zionist rather than an Orthodox. The same point of view that Benjamin Netanyahu's coming from. And as annoying as he is, he kind of talks you through the trouble escalating around that area at the minute and how tensions are really rising. And he calls it the Ring of Fire. He talks about, all these explosions that have been going off in particular areas, one in Galilee, one in Babylon, in Iraq, and a couple others. And he's saying that, people are now waiting for a response from all these particular people that have been struck with these missiles. And so now, at the minute, the tension is very, very high in that particular area. Now he's annoying because he's talking from the point of the view of as if like they're the people, they're the true children of Israel, and you just when you hear him, he's just overly proud. But this is what you expect from these Edomites. Scriptures tell you that overly proud, and so you kind of got to ignore that a little bit. But he is in that area, and he's obviously breaking down the mood and the situation within that area and what's happening at the minute. You've got this war going on. It's basically a religious war. Small hats, Zionists, basically, versus Muslims. And, when I look in, for example, Europe, that's another massive issue that they got. In the UK and Ireland, a lot of the immigrants, they come in with... you've got the problem with the immigrants in the UK, but then you've also got this thing with Muslims. So at the minute, there's a lot of riots kicking off, mini riots kicking off in England, and it was the Muslims, it was this, it was the far right English people, because some girl got stabbed, and so these are false flag events which are being created. People are getting stirred up, and it's all. They're pitting people against people all over the world. So you've got people in England, moaning about immigration, wherever you're from, but then they've got a problem also with the Muslims. The Muslims are then kicking off. You go to Ireland, it's the same sort of thing. Same thing in France. They've got a massive problem with Muslims, but then they've got a massive problem with immigration in general. So this thing is, Yahweh Hashem, Yahweh Shai is really stirring this up. But this other one, breaking news, behold Israel, on the left-hand side, you watch that, probably the first half, and you get enough information as to what you need. And I'll leave the link for both of these in the description box. But before I go, this is Revelation 19. It's the coming of Yahweh Shai, 19 and 11, and it says, and I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat up upon him was called Faithful and True, and in his righteousness he doth judge and make war. His eyes were as a flame of fire. This represents spiritual power. I will not meet thee as a man. It says, and on his head were many crowns, and he had a name written that no man knew but himself. And these many crowns represent the crowns of all these nations that are going to enter into this battle of Armageddon and ultimately be taken out of power by the army in the sky, Yahweh Shai and his angelic army. It says there, behold, a white horse represents the chariot, so-called UFO. It says here, and he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. Vesture dipped in blood is, it's not literal. He will not be covered in blood. It just represents representation of the fact that he's coming to kill a lot of people. It says, and the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. So that's the angelic army of so-called UFOs, army of chariots. And it says, and out of his mouth go a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron, and he treadeth the winepress of the fierceness of the wrath of the Almighty power. And so these so-called UFOs, these angelic vehicles, this army in the sky, when it appears right before the destruction of America, some point while World War III is going on, these vehicles will be shooting laser beams of fire, concentrated laser beams of fire. And it says here, and he treadeth the winepress of the fierceness of the wrath of the Almighty power, and he hath on his vesture and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And the fact that, again, is written on his thigh, that represents power. He's not going to have an actual tattoo on his leg. It says, and I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, come and gather yourselves together, unto the supper of the great power. So this angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to the fowls, don't forget, these animals, all animals, they have a spirit on them, just like us. And so you see animals behaving in a certain way, the spirit jumps on them to make them do things. It says, come and gather yourselves together unto the supper of the great power, that ye may eat the flesh of kings, and the flesh of captains, and the flesh of mighty men, and the flesh of horses, and of them that sit on them, and the flesh of all men, both free and bond, both small and great. Because there's going to be great death in the battle of Armageddon, the mountain of troops, in the valley of Yahweh's decision, Yahweh Shaphat, in the Levant, in the Middle East. It's going to be at some point, all the world armies are going to be drawn into that point, and there will be a great battle. And then eventually, these fowls of the sky will, as it says here, and I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, come and gather yourselves together unto the supper of the great power. So that's what these fowls are coming to eat the flesh. It says, and I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse and against his army. Because when the battle of Armageddon is going to be going on in the Middle East, at some point the angelic army of Yahushua will appear in the sky. And so at that point, any members of the elect in America will be beamed up, and nuclear ICBMs will then start to hit America and destroy it within an hour. That will be at some point when World War III escalates. And then these armies, they're going to be in battle mode. They're going to be out there in Armageddon, and they're going to fight. Join together to fight the angelic army of Yahushua. But it's not going to work. It says, and it's a verse 20, Revelation 19:20, and it says, the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worshipped his image. These both were cast alive into a lake of fire, burning with brimstone. So this represents America at that time. So Yahushua appears. You've got the battle of Armageddon already going on. And when he appears, that's when the nuclear ICBMs start to fly into America. He delivers the elect, and therein lies the lake of fire. 1 hour later, now you have the lake of fire. And then within that hour, these other nations will then realize, wow, there's another army in this war, and it's an angelic army, and they're gonna be scared, but they're still gonna fight, and it's gonna be to no avail. It says, and the remnant. So you got the lake of fire. Speaking of the lake of fire burning with brimstone, that's America on fire. As Yahushua appears, he then fights all these armies and becomes Lord of Lords, King of Kings by taking their crowns. It says, and the remnant were slain with the sword of him that sat upon the horse, which sword proceeded out of his mouth. That being the concentrated laser beam of fire shooting out of the so-called UFOs. And it says all the fowls were filled with their flesh. So that's when because America will be on fire. So, and once America burns out, there'll be no flesh. There'll be nothing left on America. It'll just be burnt to a crisp. However, in the Middle East, the battle of Armageddon, the mountain of troops, is going to be a lot of great death. First, these nations will be killing each other, for a certain period of time. We don't know how long it's going to be. And then when Yahushua arrives, they will turn to fight him, and him and his army will then destroy, whoever's left. So that's how the Battle of Armageddon ends, with Yahushua just destroying all these armies, and then the angel will call to the birds, the fowls of the heavens, and it says, and the fowls were filled with their flesh of those that are left, these dead bodies lying around. There'll still be dead bodies once the elect that were beamed up in the chariots, once they're beamed back down, and then, the Israelites start to take over these other nations and put them into rule, there'll still be dead bodies everywhere. And scriptures tell you that, one of the jobs for the Edomites, for these rulers, they will, we will tell them you have to start burying these bodies. Not just the Edomites, or wherever we go to find dead bodies, and we find a bunch of people that we put into captivity, we're going to tell them, look at these bodies, we need them buried. But a lot of them will be filled with their flesh. So it spoke of the winepress. He treadeth the winepress of the fierceness of the wrath of the Almighty power. And that winepress is Armageddon, is the mountain of troops, is in the valley of Yahweh's decision. What we're leading up to, you're seeing these fighter jets heading out there, and tensions are rising, and we're getting close to that election. So I really believe that something's going to tip off at some point before that election, in order to stop that election from going through. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe it goes a different way. However, you can't deny that, we're getting towards that World War III. But, it speaks of the winepress. You can go to Revelation 14, 14 and 14. It's headlined, The Reapers. It says, and I looked, this is John, Apostle John on the Isle of Patmos once more. It says, and I looked, and behold, a white cloud, that same angelic vehicle. It says, and upon the cloud one sat like the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. It says, and another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud, thrust in thy sickle and reap, for the time is come for thee to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. It says, and he that sat on the cloud thrust in his sickle onto the earth, and the earth was reaped. And another angel came out of the temple which is in heaven, also having a sharp sickle. And another angel came out from the altar, who had power over fire, and cried with a loud cry to him that had the sharp sickle, saying, thrust in thy sharp sickle, and gather the clusters of the vine of the earth, for her grapes are fully ripe. It says, and the angel thrust in his sickle into the earth, and gathered the vine of the earth, and cast it into the great winepress of the wrath of the Most High. It says, and the winepress was trodden without the city, and blood came out of the winepress. So this winepress is blood coming out of it. This is not a normal winepress. The grapes represent the people, especially in Armageddon. Anyone that's due to get judgment, destruction, however it may be, within that, when Yahushua arrives. Like I say, America will be destroyed straight away within the hour, and then Yahushua and his army, they will be destroying all the other soldiers left in the Middle East, and so on and so forth. And this is known as, it says in the winepress, but it says here, and the winepress was trodden without the city, and blood came out of the winepress. So we know the winepress is parabolic. It says even the horses' bridles. So even to the horses' bridles, you think of the horse, and you bridle the horse if you want to ride it, and you think of how high it'd have to be to reach that level. Again, this is you're not going to see lakes of blood 6 meters deep or so on and so forth, but it represents the fact that there's going to be a lot of bloodshed. It says by the space of 1,600 furlongs. So this is where we're heading. We're heading to that time. Remember, 7 women shall take hold of one man, so there'll be a lack of men on the face of this earth after that. Even when it's going on, a lot of men are going to be drafted out into Armageddon, the Third World War. So then at that time, if you were to then go around different nations, you would notice a lack of men. And then eventually, obviously, a lot of men will be dying in the Battle of Armageddon and in the coming of Yahushua. There's one person I know, he, you'd look at him, you'd think he's an Elamite and East Indian. But he mentioned a couple of things one time, so I said something to him about the truth, and ever since then he believes in Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushua, and I don't know what he does, but I'm assuming he prays and he believes in it. You can tell by the look on his face. He wants to know more information all the time. And he did tell me a while back that he had a dream. And he said that, because in a dream, you wake up after sleeping, but when you're in the dream, you also wake up, because you go to sleep and then you're unconscious, and then you wake up in the dream, and you're in the dream. So he woke up in the dream, and he realized that everyone around him, there's loads of people, masses of people around him, panicking, screaming. A bit like you see on these movies, these end of the world movie and so on and so forth. Thousands of people all around you just screaming, panicking. And he said that he couldn't work out at first what was going on. And he's like, what the hell, what's going on? And he finally got someone, and he said to them, what's going on? What's the panic? And the person pointed up to the sky. He said, look, pointed up there. And he said that in the dream, he looked and he saw this man. And he said the man was huge. He was so tall. He was standing on the earth, and he was so tall that his face was in the sky. It was so far away you couldn't see his face. But I believe he had that, the garment, the garment down to the knees, and then to the ankles, and then the sandals. He was wearing sandals, so he's dressed like in ancient Hebrew clothing. And then he said this man was just stamping on people, crushing people with his feet, stamping on them, stamping, and then after that, he woke up, and that was the end of the dream. And I did explain to him, I believe I explained to him at the time, that that's represents the wine press. What you saw was a dream. You're seeing precepts. To describe your dream, you have to go to precepts. You understand the precepts, you understand what your dream was represented. So now he knows that what he saw was, Yahweh Shai, if you like. Maybe not exactly Yahweh Shai, but a representation of Yahweh Shai. This man standing with his feet on the ground, so tall that his face was in the sky, and he's just stamping on people, crushing them. And it says here, and the winepress was trodden without the city, and blood came out of the winepress, even to the horses' bridles, by the space of 1,600 furlongs. So, that's where we're heading. World War III is going to take us there. Like I keep saying, the banking elites have everything in their hand at this moment. They control these governments. They control whether the US and the UK are going to send more military aid. All it takes is for them to send too much, and then other nations around them have to respond, and then it turns into a wider escalation. On one hand, these UK and these US governments say, no, we want to de-escalate. But on the other hand, they send them weapons. You've just seen it. There's two fighter jets flying over. You saw the picture. There's fighter jets flying over to the Middle East, but they're saying, oh, but we want to de-escalate. So how do you de-escalate when you send more military aid? So, a lot of nations are, they've got their eye on this. They're maybe not pushing it in the news. They keep the people occupied with bread and circuses, entertainment, sports, normal nonsense that you will see. You go on the TV, they give you 10 different items on the news, and not one of them is important to actually how the world's going to be very soon. But that's the world we live in. So but like I say, I'll leave the link for those two videos in the description box. We're heading for World War III fast. Really, you don't know, but I could see this easily happening before November, before that election. And then we have a whole new problem. We have people waiting on an election in America, civil unrest. And don't forget what I said, this World War, the next World War III, the next war, could be the tipping point for the worldwide economic system. I mean, even today there's reports coming out that I think the Japanese stock markets are at all-time low. All these things are happening, and it's based around what's happening with the dollar. So, all the signs are there. They're warning us. These elites are warning us what they're about to do. They're showing us all the signs The signs are starting to come closer and closer together. So don't be surprised if this all starts to take place very soon. So I'm going to leave it right there. Until next time, all praises to Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem, Rakat, Kwadash. And until next time, Shalom.